Building an AI application can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. There are a lot of use cases for AI in the enterprise, and all of them, when you're building apps, involves a pretty substantial tech stack. By leveraging an orchestration platform like Orkes Conductor, we can put all those moving parts into a well-coordinated flow, whether it's during the development, testing, or even the production phases. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to build an article summarizer in Orkes Conductor. And if you'd like to follow along with me, go to orkes.io/blog and find our how to develop an AI application using Conductor. Before we dive into creating the workflow itself and the application, there's a few things I want to do just to make sure you're set up for success. The first one is, let's figure out what model you want to use and get that model name. Currently, these are the AI models shown on the screen that Orkes Conductor supports. Make sure you have the exact model name, so when we set up the integration later on in this video, you can be prepared to connect that model properly. Second, you're gonna need an API key. So whichever AI model provider you chose, whichever model you want to go with, you'll need to go to your account. If you don't already have one, make an account on that site, whether it's OpenAI, in my case, Anthropic, and go create yourself an API key. That's going to be critical. You're going to need that as part of this process. And lastly, you're going to need a link to an article. In my case, I'm using something from Ars Technica, but you can use whatever you'd like because that's what we're actually going to summarize as part of this. You'll need the link and you're going to need some of that text in order to do the summary. So a brief overview of what we're going to be creating today in this workflow is depicted on the screen, and I want to walk through it just for a moment. So we're going to be building the workflow in Conductor, which involves two primary components. The first is a retrieval service. The second is the LLM service. So the retrieval service, as you can see, is what's going to get all the text from a URL that we're going to summarize. And then the second task is going to be prompting an LLM to summarize what we just received. To get started, I logged into my developer environment here in Orkes Cloud at developer.orkescloud.com. And for the first step, I'm going to go ahead and click on Workflow on the left side under Definitions. And you can see I already have a couple of workflows listed here. And then I'll click on Define a Workflow in the upper right corner. This takes us to the visual workflow editor within Orkes Conductor, where we can start building out the different tasks and steps needed to build a successful workflow. And for this example, I'm going to be building everything within the visualizer, but you can very easily click on the code tab and paste in your code here and have the same effect. First off, let's give our workflow a name. Now, I already have one called Study Partner, which is what I plan to name this. So I'm just going to give this a modification of that. Pretty easy. All right, let's describe this as AI application that summarizes an article, because that's all we plan to do. So next, we're going to add our first task. I'll click the little plus button in the visualizer here, and the type of task we're going to add is called a get document task. We'll add that in, and now we can start modifying that task. First, let's give our task a name. I'm actually going to change this from get document to get article, just so it makes a little bit more sense for anybody else looking at this in the future. We'll leave the task reference name alone. And for the URL field, we're going to change this to workflow input, and we're going to simply add URL into there. And then we're going to change the media type to text/HTML. Since that's what we're expecting to get. We're gonna go ahead and toggle on the cache output, and we'll set the time to live to 360 seconds, and we'll set our cache key. Great, that's all we need to do for this task. We'll hit save in the upper right corner, and as you've probably seen with Conductor before, we'll get an immediate diff to tell us what was there in the task before and what's there after. There's nothing on the left because it was a brand new task, and then here's all of the things that have changed on the right from previous. So we'll go ahead and hit confirm. And now we have a task completed. This is our get article task. All right, to create our second task, we'll click the plus sign again. And this time we're going to use something called a LLM text complete task. So we'll add that, and we're going to go ahead and modify the parameters from there. Let's go ahead and rename this to summarize article. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to generate a new reference name so that's similar to that. I haven't set up my LLM provider or the model or template yet, so we'll come back to that in a few minutes. Okay, for now, I'm gonna go ahead and save, confirm. Great, so now we have both of our tasks and our workflow has been built, but we're not ready yet. We still have to do all the other AI work first. We're gonna go into integrations on the left, and this is where we're gonna set up our new AI integration with a particular model. You can see I've already built one for Anthropic Claude, but I'll start a new integration to give you a sense of what that looks like. Before I move on, let me show you how to find the exact model name for Anthropic Claude. In my browser, I'm just gonna go ahead and search for Anthropic model names, which takes me to this particular page. And if you want a short version of it, it's simply at docs.anthropic.com. anthropic.com. And you can see here, kind of buried down in the docs under the About Claude and Models, you get to this page. I've zoomed in a little bit. When I scroll down here in the middle, you can get to the Model Names section. And since I'm using the Anthropic API, I'm going to stick with this column right here. And I'm going to go with the very top one. The latest release by Anthropic for Claude is 3.5 Sonnet. And so I'm going to grab the model name right here, Claude 3.5 Sonnet latest. It's really important that you have the exact model name when you build out your integration, as well as mapping the model so that it works properly. If you don't, it won't work at all. So whether you're using Anthropic like I did, OpenAI, Mistral, or any of the others, do a quick Google search, find their docs, go look for the model names listing within their docs, copy that, put it into a text file for a short term until you get to that step, but really make sure that you have this. Let me show you where I got my API key for Anthropic. If you do a quick Google search, or if you look on their site for API keys, you'll end up at some sort of portal where you log in and you can create that. For Anthropic, it's referred to as the console or console.anthropic.com. This is my dashboard. I already logged in, and right here on the front, you can see there's a button that says Get API Keys. If I click on that, you can see I've already created one here. Once you're here and you click on the Create Key button, and you can create a brand new API key, you provide the attributes, including the name of your key. Make sure that once you hit Add and it presents you with your API key, hit the Copy button or highlight it and copy it, put it into a text file immediately. Because if you lose it, you'll have to start all over again with a brand new key and rewrite things. We'll click on New Integration in the upper right corner. And from the screenshot you saw earlier, these are the different models we have available to us, or the different AI integrations we have available. I picked Anthropic Claude and clicked on Add. You can pick whatever you like. And when I do that, it'll take us to the same screen we would do to configure our integration. Since mine's already built, I'm going to back out of here and show you what mine looks like. I'll hit Cancel. So I'm going to click on my integration called Anthropic Claude. You can call it whatever you'd like at this point. You would normally set your integration name here, and the API key that I recommended earlier in the video that you go get, this is where you would paste that. The API endpoint, you'll get that from the API docs when you get your API key for whatever provider you're working with, and then go ahead and give it a description, make sure the active radio button is checked, and hit save. Now, from this screen, we need to now connect to a model at that provider. I'm going to click on the plus sign here on this line on the far right side under Actions. I'll click on the plus sign, and this is where you would add a new model. In my case, I'd already connected this to the Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is the latest rev that they have. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where it's key and critical that you have the exact name of the model you want to use. So in my case, this is it. I'll click on Actions or the little box here, and you can see exactly what I've set up. This model name must correspond with the exact model name from the provider. Let me back up here and hit Cancel to give you an example of what that looks like when you're first setting this up. Click on New Model in the upper right corner, and you'll get a very similar thing here. Conductor provides a generic model name listed. You will want to delete this and paste in exactly the model name from the provider you're working with. In my case, Anthropic. It could be OpenAI, it could be Mistral, it could be whoever you're working with, but make sure you paste the exact model name here, and then if you'd like to, give it a description. Once that's done, you hit Save. It'll appear here. And now you have both an integration to a provider and a model mapped. Next up, we need to create a prompt for this all to play out. So we're going to click on the left-hand side under Definitions. We're going to click on AI Prompts. Now you can see, again, I've already built out a prompt here. So I'm going to show you what this looks like and how we test it to verify that it is working. In my case, I call prompt. You can give it whatever name you like. I will click on mine. This is the same screen you'll get when you click on creating a new one. I gave the prompt a name here at the top, and then under model, you will get a pull down that will show all the different models that you have already created. So in that last step, when we built our integration and then connected to a variety of different models, in my case, just the one, all of those integrations will show up here, and you can go through and select them, and they will map out in this field, and you can pick as many as you like. Then I give it a description, and then below that is my prompt template. Now, the important part about this is just Markdown for the most part. This is how I want it formatted when I request the article be summarized. This is all happening on the backside. So we need to write this prompt up front that is going to be sent to the model that the application down the line could then use. This is all written in Markdown, which is pretty straightforward. And then there's a section here, you can see right here, the $ text field. This is what's going to get replaced by the URL that you are asking to be summarized. And what we want to do is test it to make sure that this is working properly. So on the right-hand side, we have a way that we can test immediately. I'm going to select the model to test here on the right-hand side. I'll leave the temperature alone for right now. I don't need to worry about stop words or top P. And then lastly, and this is the most important part, the variable that we want to substitute. So for this test, we need to actually go grab the text that we want the model to summarize. So I'm going to click on my other tab here for this article, and literally I'm going to copy all of this text on the page. I will copy it, and I will go back into my prompt, and I'm going to paste that into this field here. Once I do that, I can hit test, give it a moment, and as you can see, it tested it. It sent a request to the model using the prompt format that I asked for. I'll move my video so you can see that. So the prompt format here on the left-hand side in Markdown was placed in that same format here on the right, and then it took the text that I provided it in that variable substitute field, put that in, summarized it, and you can see what we have here. Let me show you what it would look like if I gave it something other than that at this stage in the testing. Since we don't have the full workflow yet, we're just testing out how the prompt itself works. I'm gonna go back over to the original article I got this from at Ars Technica, and I'm just gonna copy the link from the browser bar here. I'll go back into the article summarizer prompt in Conductor. I'm just gonna go ahead and remove everything here under variable substitute. I'm gonna paste in the URL itself, rerun the test, and let's see what the result comes back like. So we can see the difference in the test result. Since we're just testing a prompt and we provided it with something other than the actual data that we wanted it to summarize, it still comes back to us with a response, but it's not exactly what we're looking for because we've actually provided it with URL and not the data we want to summarize. So this shows a really interesting example of where you can play around with the substitution of that variable and see what sort of responses you can get, and that could affect how you build your workflow and other applications you could support once you get beyond that point. Now that we've tested it, it's working, we can click save. Mine has already been created, so I'm just showing you a test, but you would go through and hit save in the upper right corner here, and your prompt would then be completed and ready to be used. Now that we've integrated our AI provider, we've mapped the model we want, and we've created a prompt structure that we're going to use, we can go back into the workflow, finish building that out, and then run it for the first time. So we're going to go back over to our definitions area, click on workflow, and I'm going to click on study partner 1, because that's what I'm working with. Now, I'm going to go into summarize article. The get article piece is already done. It's ready to go. We just need to go into summarize article and map out the things that are necessary, including first, our LLM provider. We'll click on LLM provider, and we're going to choose, in my case, Anthropic Claude. This is where you would pick whatever you've mapped. I'm going to pick the model that I did there, which in this case is also from Anthropic. It's Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And then prompt template, I'll click on that. And again, here's my list of available options. And I created the article summarizer prompt. So I'll click on that. It's all set to go. And the last thing I need to do there is to add back in the variable for my prompt. I'll click save, confirm, and now we can do a test run. Before we move on to trying out the workflow itself, let's use the test task function to see how this particular task, the get article, is actually going to work. In the workflow visualizer, I've clicked on the get article task, and here at the top, there's a button that says test task. When I click on that, I get a few options, but we'll just stick with the default. And under the variable substitute field, I'm going to go ahead and paste in the URL for this article that we want to have summarized. If I hit run test, what we'll see in the result is all of the content that we tried in our earlier test of the prompt, which is basically copy and pasting all of the text from the article natively. So you can see all of that is listed here. And what that's confirmed for us is that everything we've built is ready to go. This task knows how to go out and get that article. All we had to do is give it the URL proper. It goes and finds it, and we know this is going to work. From the workflow visualizer, I can go ahead and click on the Run tab. And then in the input parameters, I can go ahead and add what I want the input to be. So for us, it's just going to be a simple URL call, which is to the URL for that article I've already been showing you a couple of times. I'll click Run Workflow, and we'll give it a moment or two to run and see if it's successful. All right, fantastic. Both tasks completed successfully. So we can go ahead and click on Get Article, and we can see that was done, input and output. Got the article, so it got the result of the entire article. So here's all the text that it grabbed. And then if I click on the Summarize Article task and to see how that went, click on input, and we can see here that it pulled in the input from the first task, which is all the text of the entire article. And if I click on output, we can see right away that here is our result. We have a summary, and you can see that all the markdown is listed here. Now, it didn't format it the way that we would normally expect Markdown to format it, but it doesn't really matter. It actually did the thing we were asking it to do. That was pretty cool. We were able to connect ourselves to an AI provider, map to a model, build a couple of tasks, build out a prompt, test that prompt, and then run a workflow all in a matter of minutes using Orkes Conductor. What ideas do you have for building an AI application? Let me know in the comments below on this video, or go to orkes.io and you can sign up for our Slack channel and share there and let us all know. Good luck building your next application.